Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Podcast. I am your host, Craig Fowler, and on this occasion I am joined by Tony Anderson. Hello, Tony.
Oh, aye. I'm well. How are you, Fowler? More at the point.
I never actually asked you how you are. You just started saying, I'm well.
No, I have an assumption that you care about how I'm feeling. Even if you don't show it. How did you recover from last week when we were out on our jollies?
Oh, wow. Right. When did I fully recover from that? I don't know. Yesterday?
That
was a Thursday night.
Right, it was. I went to the pub on the Friday as well for a few because Mandy was the home. Because I got on the wrong train when I was coming back for yours. Not like the wrong way, just it was a long train.
Oh, yeah, the one that lasts like an hour and a half.
Aye, I was on it for an hour and 20 minutes. I've never seen any of these places in my fucking life. Where am I? And obviously, I'm absolutely rattling, not in a good way. And it was early afternoon. I'd been for a KFC. Early afternoon, basically, I was just on this whole carriage on my Todd. I never saw anyone. And eventually, a guy walked past me. The guy looking for the tickets, he didn't even bother asking me. We'll leave that man alone. As I'm desperately, and then by the time I got off, I was like, I actually do genuinely think I need a pint. I'm absolutely in a terrible way. So I went to the quarry, had a pint. Lee's dad was there, had a pint with them till about 8ish, then nipped home. But it took me that long to get home. I met them at about 4:30. And then I got home, and then I was fundraising outside Tynecastle on the Saturday, straight after.
Yeah, aye. I saw that. How did that go?
Yeah, it was fine. Got me in the fresh air. Was feeling all right. Then Mandy's nephews arrived when I got home. So Mandy took them to the skate park. And then I was, because I was trying to do the script for the show for this week. And then they came back. I bought them a McDonald's. And I was like, I'm just going to bed. Sorry. They just left Mandy with them. We just went to bed. Then they were commenting on hearing me snoring. Then we all went to play golf at Fountain Park the day after. Then Pizza Hut buffet, that type of thing. Being a sound uncle. Then they were taken away, and then it was back to real life again.
Yeah, I just did a lot of sleeping, I think.
I slept a lot over the weekend.
I'm trying to think, I did nothing on Saturday except for watch. I slept pretty much all of Friday. Didn't sleep in that late, but just like one of those ones where you go back, you go to the couch.
Dozy.
And then it was just it was honestly like every hour. Just kept falling asleep.
Brilliant.
And I love for 2 hours. And it was one of those ones where I kept not realising I was falling asleep. And then I would just wake up and I look at my phone and be like, how come 2 hours have just passed in a second?
Did you enjoy the Libertines, Fowler?
Yeah, it was good.
It was good. It was better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it wasn't as good as the last time I saw them at the Barrowlands, but that was a Saturday night. So it was a very different crowd. Just obviously a lot rowdier. And it was mental the last time I saw them. I couldn't believe how... One of the best gigs I've ever been to, that one. And it's like, this shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't be seeing a band 15 years after their peak.
Right.
And they're that good. But it was just because the crowd were just so up for it. But yeah, it was a Thursday night where we went. So anyway, we've been talking for over 3 minutes now.
I'm sure people, I'm checking in, Fowler, if anything, with you. Just because it's being recorded doesn't mean that I'm not able to.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about David Gray. That's why we're here. So
a man who was sleeping all weekend as well, I bet he wishes.
It actually took me a while to realise. I knew that United had equalised, but it took me an hour or so to realise that Hibs had actually got beat. I thought I'd finished 2 each.
I slept in again. Oh, brilliant. Every day I wake up, everything's got better. Hearts have scored 4. Hibs have got defeated. The usual part of my weekend where I realise everything that could go wrong, the worst possible scenario that could possibly be happening is happening. That's a very regular occurrence.
Because even the 2 Hearts goals, which were a wee bit slightly flattered Hearts a little bit. Hearts deserved to win, no doubt about it. Much better teams than were garbage. But 4-0 was probably a wee bit overstated of how Hearts played. But those extra goals, coupled with obviously the Dundee United goals, meant that Hibs went to the bottom of the table. Yeah. And that's where David Gray finds himself going into his first ever derby. Tony, if David Gray loses this derby, is how strong a possibility is there that he's out of a job on Monday?
I think there's a pretty large possibility. And even if it doesn't happen that soon, he might get another game, something like that. But my assumption would be that he gets another game. It's just tiding things over while they're looking for other things to do. I do think we're at do or die for David Gray this weekend. Whether that's fair or not, and whether I think something I was always thinking is that all these things can be right. It's something that me and Chris have spoken about a few times, is that Gray can be out his depth and he can also not be getting any of the support that he deserves. Yeah. You know, all these things can be true. And are possibly quite likely true, would be my gut instinct and what I always thought. But when he's got the sort of like Mr. Experience just hanging around as well, and Malky Mackay, it's such an obvious thing that the club can do. Some would argue was always the plan for certain people. I'm not saying that, but that's obviously what it could definitely come across at. We all know that Bill Foley and co didn't really fancy Gray as a manager. He is bottom of the league. He's won one game and he'd be getting beat off Hearts. And Hibs go through managers regardless. Like I go through fucking pizzas. So, you'd have to be, you'd be lying to yourself if you didn't think he was, this is an absolutely massive game for his tenure. Because I just don't think he's got the time. Because it's just basically someone ready to step into his shoes, who's probably quite literally waiting to do it.
Yeah, and that's what we kind of thought for the start. So yeah, there's a couple of things you mentioned there that we should just kind of break down a bit more. So you mentioned the support that Gray's not getting. So I suppose this is a big thing about Hibs and judging Gray so far, is in terms of judging the players that he's got to work with. Now, there's certainly a lot of quality in that Hibs team, and the results have not been... I think even in terms of, not even in terms of the talent on the side, but even performances so far this season, results haven't necessarily reflected that. Mm. But at the same time, there's obvious weaknesses, and one of the weaknesses being the goalkeeper position, with Joseph Bursic just looking not very good, and you have to be wondering how bad his backup is if he's not had a chance at this point to show what he could do. But how much of this, like, you just don't know with the setup of Hibs, especially since you've got an owner that used to be the head of recruitment who... really enjoyed being in that job, I think, to the point where he's like asking Hibs fans on European trips, do you like this player? Do you like this player? I signed him. He was playing a real life game of Football Manager, and you can tell that Ian Gordon really liked that. So I mean, now that he's not in that job anymore as the owner, but is he still having a say? You just don't know, and because of what
they've got the golden quadrant, I imagine,
the golden quadrant, and then they've obviously brought in Malky Mackay, who is got contacts throughout the British football and has been a manager very recently at a job where he was the man signing the players. So you do wonder, how much is David Gray responsible for this squad as it is put together? Yeah,
I would say that he would always have some sort of say, though. I would always have severe doubts that people are just literally just put onto you and you have absolutely zero say in being able to veto on it. But I don't think that would be the main part of his job. I think it would be the coaching side of it. They made up a job for David Marshall as well last season. I mean, anyone who fucks up at Hibs seems to get a new job. and I don't like, it's not that I dislike David Marshall or anything like that, but you're talking about the backup goalie that I can barely even bother remember his name because he was the most sort of like, he was just, is it Johnson? That he brought in, and there's quotes that it was from him when he signed, is that David Marshall approached him, persuading him to come to Hibs, even though he's like a jobbing backup goalie who, like, he played against Kelly Hearts and he was absolutely hopeless, according to everyone that was there, like worryingly so.
Oh yeah, you talked about, is it Jordan Smith?
Jordan Smith, sorry, it's a Johnson Smith. It's all the same. Johnson's on loan.
Murray Johnson.
Murray Johnson loan at Airdrie. Starting to get more and more thinking, like, is he? He might be better than all of them. So, like, Smith or Marshall was involved in that, bringing him in. And then Joseph Bursic's come from Belgian football, but obviously looks like he had a career in the English Championship before then. So you'd presume that's the old Malkinator that was involved in that one. But this is the problem. Just Malky sort of put himself, was sort of like getting his excuses in early a few months ago when he was talking about the real reset will be next summer because loads of players will be out of contract, which is fine to a point, but you still bring in 13 guys or something like that. And the turnover was still huge. You still managed to get rid of a lot of the deadwood. And now in the first team, you'd probably only think there's maybe 4 or 5 players that seem to be completely ostracised. So I wouldn't say that's massively unusual for a football team to have 4 or 5 sort of players sort of hanging on at the first team. So it's hard to buy all that. And teams like Jimmy Taylor is sort of like, it proves it all wrong that you can't turn these things over in a summer. And it happens every single season in Scottish football that a team turns over in the summer and everything seems to be great. And it can be done. And Hibs just seem, especially since the Gordons got involved, in a constant seam of transition. And it gets harder and harder to buy every time that it's just humanly impossible to finish mid-table.
And even like if you're also talking about like a lack of support for Gray as well, you look at the coaching staff.
Yes, that's something I wanted to talk about. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Liam Craig he's got 2 assistants. It's Liam Craig and Eddie May. Now Eddie May is an experienced coach. The man is 57 now. He's been in football for 40 years. But he's only really had one managerial job before at Falkirk that didn't go well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's obviously very good as a coach and he's had stints as being the interim boss, but you do kind of think that maybe there should be somebody there. Not instead of Liam Craig. Liam Craig might end up being a great coach, but the fact is that he's never been a manager himself either. So like you've got this rookie head coach and then you've got a rookie assistant and then you've got another assistant who, he's experienced, but he's not been in Gray's position of being in charge of a football club as big as Hibs. And therefore there is that kind of guidance maybe lacking as well.
There's also the idea that every single one of these has been part of the Hibs culture for either a long time or previously. And then Craig Sampson's the goalkeeping coach. If I recall, Aberdeen fans seemed to be really happy when he was coming over as the goalkeeping coach at Hibs. And then I said, David Marshall's around. He gets put in our job. So it's like, everyone, no matter how much you're failing, every single person seems to be getting promoted or brought back in. And it's like the place is just filled with guys who now probably do know the club. Is that a good thing anymore? There can be too many of them that are sort of stuck to it. And again, this is what I mean. It can be all these things, and Gray could still not be the right man. He's not the right coach, but he was pretty much always going to be on a hide into nothing. But that doesn't mean that he can't be blamed for some of the issues that are going on the pitch.
Well, let's get to that now. What's the biggest failings of Gray so far from what you've seen this season?
Well, it's obviously the easiest thing is mentality and the fact that everyone's making individual errors. Hearing Dwight Gale come out talking about how nice everyone is at training, that's not a good thing. That basically he's a guy who's coming in new, who's probably come from a high standard. Is like nobody seems to be digging each other out. Everyone's really sound. Everyone's really enjoying it. Which you need a bit of like questioning, especially when people are just giving the game away. And so you're saying it's like performances would be good and Gray could be getting things quite right. But if someone's chucking the team under the bus every single time, that's okay once or twice. But when everyone's taking a shot at doing it, it probably means that the culture of the team is people don't get pulled up for it and everyone's able to just move on quite nicely, quite quickly. I can't guarantee these things, but when you hear quotes like that come out and you keep on watching the same thing happening all the time, it's very hard not to believe that. So maybe Gray's struggled possibly from moving from the sound coach or obviously playing with some of these guys or move the coach into that managerial bit, and he's struggling with the ability to call everyone out because your assumptions with a guy like Gray, with the way he played, he wasn't a big screamer, but he certainly he led by example in his style of play. So you would think that like there would be minimum standards, but when you're watching it with Hibs and the way it looks is like the stuff that you see at half time and stuff, and you could read too much into it, but it just looks like there's nobody driving any sort of standards at the club whatsoever.
That was something the Hibs fans picked up of in the Dundee United game at half time. There was nothing. There was no coach. There was no coach doing like a wee training ground exercise to keep everybody warm and fit. It was literally just the players were just allowed to go out and do whatever the hell they wanted. There
was a group of them just talking and like kicking. Like they weren't even doing like one of those things, when a guy's in the middle. Nobody was getting the blood going. It was just literally just chatting, like what I would be if me and you walked on the park together, and you just we just tow the ball slightly towards you, and you're just chatting about like that. So just like Like just that just it doesn't look good, and it doesn't look like that. That also means that it doesn't look like management's got a handle on things. And again, that's perception. But you would assume that there's at a club the size of Hibs nowadays, there is a full professional run through of what you're doing at half time, whether you're coming on the pitch or not. That would be my. And again, that's about standards that everyone has to do something at each time. So I don't know. I'm scared to look too much into stuff like that, but that's how it seems to me.
Aye, because you don't want to, because it could always be a perception. And also when people put up these kind of social media clips, it can sometimes be a bit misrepresentative. Like somebody can maybe stuck that up and then, went for or like recorded it and then went for a piss, and then maybe the last 5 minutes of the half, a coach did come out and put them through their paces. Like,
so you don't know. That could have been right after when they've just come out, they were waiting on the coach coming out to do it. So I don't know. So I don't want to leave too much in it. But all these things don't look good. Especially when, as I said, everyone's making mistakes. People seem to tire quite a lot towards the end of games. Like 90 minutes, man. It's like everyone, it's the fear of God comes across everyone. And again, that does kind of land at the manager, creating a culture of concentration, looking after each other, all that. That is that's surely a massive bit of management, is creating a mentality.
Yeah, let me see if I can find this right now. This was put in the Discord chat yesterday. Yes, it's goals scored, conceded per 15 minutes, like throughout the game. Hibs, from the 76th minute to the 90th minute, they have scored none and conceded 7 this season.
I mean, there's only been 8 games.
The only team not to score in the last 15 minutes of a game, and them and Ross County have conceded the most, with 7 each.
So again, that's mentality and fitness are the only two things that can come down to. And that's a good stat. You think I would come with stuff like that for podcasts, but fortunately we've got people who pay us to come with Thank God.
They pay us to make the podcast better.
Thank you. Cheers. You've improved this podcast immensely. Thank you.
All right, let me just name check that person. Let's have a quick look. That was down to Arab Matt, a Dundee United fan. So thank you for that, Mr. Matt. So you said earlier...
Oh, this when I meant to come out and say, bloody hell, obsessed, looking up the Hibs right after
it. So you said earlier about Gray in terms of like the big issue has been the kind of mentality in the team. Are you reasonably happy with how he's, like, at least in recent games, setting the team out tactically?
I quite like. I think kind of got forced upon him against Dundee United, but he went to the back 3 because he took Miller off at half time and brought Boyle on, and then Cadden got injured pretty early in the half, and they didn't have another right back to go on, so he brought Jack Iredale on, and he went to a back 3, and that seemed to work really well. Hibs took
and also other than he's deer in the headlights for the equaliser. When he does, like, he kind of, like, the ball breaks to Stevenson and he just kind of looks at him and then he's like, oh, I should maybe do something here, and then he just kind of falls over. But other than that, I actually was quite impressed with Iredale. He was very composed with the ball, and other than that moment, he did defend very well.
Yeah, so that went well, and we improved at that point, and you saw the way that we could scored a goal from open play, which has been a worrying part of Hibs this season. It's hard to judge because Hibs got off to a pretty hard start, and they were at Ibrox and Parkhead, so those stats can get quite misleading about chances that you're creating in open play. But we have struggled to create a lot of chances on play, and we have a lot of territory and we have a lot of the ball, but I don't think we always create sort of like gilt edge chances. We might only make 1 or 2, but I thought a lot of them need to, even if you're only making a few, if you're on the ball all the time, 99 times 100, that could turn into a comfortable win. You score that first one, you have the ball a lot, then you score the second. For example, the Motherwell game, in the first half we had 2 really good chances. You take one of them's a sitter from Kukurevic, that goes in, then they opens them up, blah, 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 blah. So again, I don't want to read too much in it, and I think it's unfair to do a thing. I think some of the signings, the way he's got Triantis, he pushed for that by all accounts, and I think even though he let everyone down in the Motherwell game, he done well. He's been a shining light, and he's looked really, really good. We looked like we missed him for large periods of the Dundee United game until Hibs had to put the extra man in there, and then you let him down. So he's being let down by a lot of people, but again, that's something that you have control over. So you can't take that away and give it as an excuse, because that's your job, is to make it that they don't do that, especially when they're doing it with such regularity. But Yeah, I've liked, there seems to be flexibility. I like some of the players. I think Hoylett's been a good pickup, and at decent times look all right. He's funnily enough got us doing really well from set pieces in an attacking sense. So that's really good for him because obviously he's having a big part of that, and that's something that a manager can have a play on. So Hibs have scored nearly all of their goals from set pieces, which to most people I think would be unusual. So there's good bits and bad bits, but like I say, if in the key moments in football matches, and I mean that is stupid red cards, not scoring penalties, giving away goals in the 90th minute constantly making errors to concede goals, then none of that means a fuck. It doesn't. It's an irrelevance. It's a footnote to a defeat or dropping points.
So finally, just looking ahead to Sunday, it's a bit of a hard game to preview because Hearts have got a new manager that at the time of recording has only taken one match, and he set up that team because he said afterwards he thought St Mirren were going to play at a 3 at the back, and they didn't. It worked very well, but is he going to stick with the same?
It was a fluke. I didn't realise that. Thank God. Where's my Hibs chat? I'm going in and telling them. It's all nonsense.
So now it's possible that Hibs will play with a 3 at the back as well. So it's interesting to see how Hibs will line up for this one. But staying away from the tactical side, just kind of like what you could have expected from the game. It's as much of it's a difficult question as that may be.
I think this is where Gray needs to, because he has an advantage of these intangibles that football men always go on about, knowing the fixture, understanding what it means, all that stuff. He does have that as a bonus, and obviously Hearts brought in a lot of new players as well in the summer. So that there's an example that he does have that, and he needs to have an impassioned speech to make it happen because Hibs just have to be purely concentrated. They're good enough to beat Hearts at Easter Road. The team's lining up against you. They are definitely able to do that. But so it just needs to be concentrated, digging each other out of a hole when the time comes, and not just being just not wilting at the first sign of any sort of things not going your way, which has been a problem. Gray even mentioned this when he was talking about the game. It's something that's been with them his whole time at Hibs. Sometimes fairly, sometimes not. But once you get that, then people just rear it when you get a defeat, and you can never shake it off or move on. And then I always wonder, is that seeping into all the new players that come in? Because all the players you get, they aren't all going to be that mentally strong, are they? Because they're pish. Because they're coming here. And I don't mean that. I mean about the players have signed. I just mean in general, coming to some of the clubs in Scotland. You know, they're not the world's best. And you imagine that they have some sort of fragility. And some of them maybe are coming to play for the biggest club they've ever played for. Even the ones that play in the English lower leagues. You know, they don't play for clubs where it's like you're the centre of the universe when you're in Edinburgh, and there's bloody media that's just about Hibs or just about Hearts or constantly things on. That's a different kettle of fish, even if you're earning less money. Do you know, the pressure? It doesn't all match up. So the concentration levels have to be perfect because he has to get the fans on, because the fans will turn. And this is his biggest problem as well, is he's the trump card for the board because they won't be coming for Gray. They won't be coming for Gray, the Hibs fans. It won't be loud. It won't be vitriol against him. It'll go straight to the board. Yeah. And then that's his other issue, is that he's just Operation Human Shield. That's the first thing you do, is put him, and then you maybe get a couple of weeks to reset again before everyone's wanting to slit your throat or whatever. So this is the problem for Gray. He's in a real, so he needs to dig in and give the speech of his life, because he knows the fixture and he knows what it means to everyone, and get everyone out there and just fucking doing it the PFM way. Proper football man. Just dig in and make it happen.
Also, when Gray played for Hibs and when he was playing every week, that was a period for Hibs when probably, since the very start of this century, is probably the period where Hibs had the kind of most sustained success over Hearts. And also, I'm pretty sure he grew up a Hearts fan anyway, so he should be better at winning derbies than most Hibs managers.
You'd assume so. But yeah, that's what I mean. He's well versed in the fixture, and he was successful in it as a player. He put in the tip, him and Bartley and stuff, where they had loads of good performances and victories against Hearts. Sorry. So, I think he's got to channel that and give the belief through his own history. And I think we are at the stage where it's concentration and intangibles is what's going to get it over the line. And I know people might roll their eyes at that, especially coming from us, who we're meant to be fucking football dweebs or whatever we're thought of. I'm just a bald guy who goes to the games, man. But
I don't know anything about this XG.
Yeah, well, I certainly do not.
I was going to say earlier, you were talking about Hibs' difficult start to the season. Come on, Tony, you can't have a difficult start to the season if you've not played future European Cup winners, Jimmy to Leeds Aberdeen. Come on.
Yeah. Maybe that's the key. Maybe that Gray will get sacked in the first game. Will be Malky Mackay beating Aberdeen, shutting everyone up. Hibs finally coming off the bottom. Who knows? But so I do think it is. I do think it's blood and thunder and getting everyone behind you and just being concentrated, because the game will be shite. We know that. We know that. So it is about concentration, digging each other out, and then taking the chances when they come. And it'll be fucking furiously fast. So I don't know how much the tactics ever really have that much of a say in it. It's just that's how, obviously there's little things you can do, but normally it's just wild, and you're watching a nonsense. It looks like sometimes it feels like you're just watching kids play because the ball's just firing about the place. So hopefully Hibs with Triantis and Kwon can take some sort of ownership in the midfield with a bit of quality and obviously having a bit of height. A much bigger team than Hearts as well, I think Hibs are.
Yeah, they do. That's something that does concern me ahead of this weekend, is this kind of size difference, especially since Hearts now, like, considering recent form of like Spittle and Danda, can't not play them. You can't not play Vargas because he's the only player with pace. Mm-hmm. It's especially since Oda is injured, and also you wouldn't play Oda anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of
have to play. Yeah,
there's a bit of
and Hibs seem to be scoring goals for set pieces regularly.
Aye, Hearts were really struggling that early in the season. I've tightened it up a bit recently, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm a wee bit concerned for Sunday, but it also just feels like Hibs are just very much on the if not already, then on the verge of implosion once again. So that's kind of, I'm feeling confident for that aspect. When I think too much about the game, I get less confident. But often in derbies, you just shouldn't think about it that much.
Well, I just said that. It's just going to be fun kicking the ball, and you'll get one chance, and if you put it in, then brilliant. If you don't,
we do have our, not very necessarily that big, but we do have our guys who are quite good in derbies in terms of playing to that style. Beringamy and Cammy Devlin being the two that are. And Shanklin's score record against Hibs, score record against Hibs is very, very good. So, yeah, so I'll be watching it in a pub in Gorgie. I assume you'll be watching it.
You're not going. You're not got a ticket.
I couldn't find. I've been messaging around. I will go to Twitter on the day of the match and say, is there any chance anybody is unwell or whatever and can't make the game? And
has anyone had a wild Saturday night?
Yes.
They're still up and they cannot face it.
Is anybody at A&E and can message me over their ticket? Presumably,
I'll come over to Little France. I'll come and get it.
I'll come get it. If it's a physical ticket, I'll come pick it up for you.
Yeah, because we're going to that, and then we'll be wetting our baby's friend's head after it, fella. So you might have to make your way down to Leith, whether you like it or not.
Oh, God. See if I can get myself out of Monday's podcast then. Right, anyway, that'll do us for now. Thank you very much for joining me, Tony.
Anytime, mate. Thank you.
And thank you to everybody for listening and your continued support of the podcast. We will talk to you again soon. Goodbye.